Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Waumsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome once again to the WP Builds podcast. You have reached episode number 369, entitled No Script Show Episode 8, Designing an Effective Homepage. It was published on Thursday the 18th of April 2024. My name's Nathan Wrigley and I'll be joined in a few minutes by David Waumsley so that we can have that chat. Prior to that though, just a few bits of housekeeping. If you like what we're doing at WP Builds, head over to our subscribe page, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Follow us on your social channels, but also sign up to our newsletter so that we can alert you when we produce new content. That's typically 2 bits a week. That's a podcast episode coming out on a Thursday. That's what you're listening to now. But also when we record our This Week in WordPress show, we release that as a podcast on Tuesday. So that's typically 2 bits of content. But also, occasionally we do things like webinars and product demos, things like that. And we will alert you about those as well. You can find out all of the things that we're putting on by going to our schedule page, wpbuilds.com/schedule. If you'd like to get your product or service out in front of a WordPress-specific audience, we have one of those, a WordPress-specific audience that is. You can find out more at wpbuilds.com/advertise and get your product or service in front of a WordPress-specific audience, a bit like these fine companies. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by GoDaddy Pro. GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. Find out more by going to go.me/WP Builds. That's go.me/WP Builds. We're also supported by Weglot. Weglot, the easiest way to translate your WordPress website. The Weglot translation plugin gives you a reliable and easy way to make your WordPress website multilingual in minutes. No coding required and no developer time needed. Find out more at weglot.com. That's weglot.com. And sincere, heartfelt thanks go to GoDaddy Pro and Weglot for their support of the WP Builds podcast. Okay, what have we got for you today? Well, it's the 8th episode in the new No Script Show series. I will probably do this until about 10 episodes, I've decided now. But we have hijacked the WP Builds podcast. A little while ago, just before Christmas, David decided that he wasn't really using WordPress much anymore. And so he thought it was silly for him to carry on doing the WP Builds podcast. However, we decided to do a new podcast called No Script Show. You can find it at noscript.show. And in this podcast, we're just simply getting back to basics using HTML and CSS, maybe a teeny tiny bit of JavaScript to build up websites. And in this episode, we're having a real long, hard think about the website homepage that we have got. So that's the No Script Show homepage. The whole point of it is that we want to have a long, hard think out in public and in a discussion format about the different bits and pieces that need to be on our homepage. So who is it designed for? What is the audience? How can we most effectively convey that? How are we going to make it look in light and dark mode? What are we going to do about different width? Are we going to use media queries or something a little bit more modern? And thinking about it very much from the person visiting the homepage, what will they expect? And how can we not make them think? I hope that you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the No Script Web Show about modern web design, where we look at what we can build today with minimal dependencies and skills. Last time we were defining some aims for the show's website, which David is developing as part of the podcast. Now we need a design to help it connect with the right audience. If we were experts in user experience or UX and its associated disciplines such as copywriting, branding, graphic design, and SEO, we might look at each of those in turn. We are not. So instead, we've created a rough homepage design, or David has, and we will use this episode to critique it against what we think various expert bodies might say. Hi, David.
Hi there. Yeah. So, well, we've talked about this kind of stuff before, how to get start a design off, particularly with clients and the type of clients that you and I might have, which might be sort of small businesses that are kind of local. We can't really do all this stuff, which we maybe ideally would do if we were true professionals with all of this expertise. We would go through a whole process, wouldn't we? A UX process, but we're really not going to get clients on board with that kind of idea. Too much work up front, particularly for the kind of budgets they have. So yeah, and we've talked about this before, and I've found my best way is kind of to take note of all the key points I think that might come under that umbrella of UX. So, the key points about getting copy to clarify the message you want to get over, and other things with design, which neither of us are skilled in doing. And borrowing again from UX, we talked about this before. You don't have to be much of a designer to put something together that looks okay. So maybe we could talk first a bit, because I put that on the show notes. I don't know if you want to bring those up, some of the resources. And really, this is my list. You might have some other things that have guided you. So I'm just looking at who we go to get the main ideas about how to go about design. And I've sort of sectioned these off over here. So when it comes to UX, I mean, we've talked about this before, I know. A book that was very influential on both of us, which was Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it up there, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great read. But do you think it's still got the message that it did? Is it as powerful a book as it was back in the day? Because it's been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
But I think nothing's really changed, has it? Because really, the enterprise of make me do less in every walk of life is desirable. So the central message of that is, just don't make me click several times when all I should do is click one time. And hopefully that message is getting through.
I think on the metadata for their site on it, it says, as far as humanly possible, your product should be self-evident, obvious, and self-explanatory. And this is kind of a message that we need to get to all together, be clear about. And that's what we did last time. We were trying to talk about what we were trying to get, our aims for this. And now we need to sort of realize that in the most simplest way that cuts through to busy people who, view so many web pages. I think it is. He did a revisited version of his book, but that's still quite old now. But I read that and I couldn't remember. I couldn't see the difference, to be honest. The main point was that don't make me think. It sticks with me through everything I do now.
Yeah.
And the other people, is the Nielsen Norman group. Their resources, they're online, lots of little videos they do on YouTube as well.
I should say that the page that we're looking at the moment is a page that you can easily find. If you go to noscript.show / and then the episode number. So this is episode 8. So if you go noscript.show / 8, you will be able to find the link. So there's the link to the Steve Krug book and the Nielsen Norman Group book as well, plus all of the other bits and pieces that we're going to mention today. But, okay, sorry, that was a slight aside.
No, it's a good one as well, because for people that are just listening to the audio, we are going to be looking at the design that I've put together here. So we'll try and describe it. I think it will work for audio, but, one
thing on that as well, on the don't make me think bit is it's not always the client's, how to describe it. The client is so steeped in their own business that much of what they take as second nature, so the acronyms that they use and the vocabulary that they use and just the industry that they're in, it's so self-evident to them that, well, this is what should go on the website because this is what I do. And very often that's completely at odds with what should go on the website because obviously, the end user is typically unexperienced. And so they need to be told a whole different body of things. And so that conversation is quite an important one to have, is just think about the audience and not making them think, because it's too easy for people to slip into the vernacular of the industry they're in, or just assume that everybody does exactly what they do and uses, understands their business inside and out, which of course they won't.
Yeah. I mean, I did actually put some points on the show notes there, which I skipped over there. And it's that, I guess it's we've often heard it said before. And I think there's no excuse any longer where designers would say they just ended up becoming pixel pushers for their clients and stuff who take control of things. And I think with proper communication, we have to understand that most clients won't have really seen things in the way that UX people do. So for UX people, the visual representation of the site is the tip of the UX iceberg. It's all about what goes into that messaging and how we communicate with people. And clients don't know this, that all they've got even if we set their aims with them, all they've really got to understand what they've commissioned, but they're paying for the thing, is their own eyes and what it feels like to them. But of course they have to, like you're just alluding to now, is that in many cases, the people commissioning a website are the sellers trying to appeal to buyers who by that very nature will be different to them. These people will have different preferences to themselves. So, I think getting that over is quite important in the first place. And I think sometimes if you lead and can introduce people to some simple things like don't make me think and what's behind that and what the Norman Niesel group say about it, we can get it back onto their aims all of the time and try and move it a little bit away from this subjective looking at, which we're going to do in a moment, look at a homepage and only judge it by whether it appeals to you or not.
Right. You've really got to strip yourself out of the equation, haven't you? Because your opinion of what everybody will like will undoubtedly not be what everybody likes.
Yeah. And that's it. When we did it last time about getting to the aims, if you get the aims to people, then you've always got that one reference. Well, you want this to happen, don't you? So, to do that, you've got to get on board people who are going to help you make your aims work. So we need to understand them and walk in their shoes. And that's basically all that UX is doing is making us find empathy with the user. That's all that we're trying to do with it. So we've got that as our tools there. We've got copywriting, which is always a difficult thing. Because we ask for clients for the copy, don't they? But if they're small businesses, their experience of writing can maybe only be writing essays at school or something like that.
Yeah. And also, I think many of my clients had an expectation that the whole copy thing was under my purview, that, that was part of the business. You don't go in and buy some trousers from a shop and expect to not have pockets. They're going to have pockets, right? That's part of it. It's not an add-on. And I think clients often thought, well, you'll do the copy. We've had a chat. You know what my business now is. Can you just write the copy? And not very effectively. It's the answer. So you've got a few resources of places where you have turned.
Yeah, Copy Blogger's got a lot of articles. That's been going forever. And it's a huge, big website. Copy Hackers was always most helpful to me. I had a series of their books, which used to help you to do things like define your value proposition, which is probably the most important thing, your hero text at the beginning and the description, and to get over what you want in the simplest of ways. And I think what all of those are saying, is that you have to get over yourself, don't you? Basically, you have to, again, get into the user's shoes, use the smallest words possible, use less of them, because this isn't an article or an essay that someone's reading. This is sales copy. It needs to be quick for readables for people who are going to skim the web to see if there's something of interest to them. So there's not much there. Google, SEO, I don't suppose that really comes, I lumped it under user experience. I guess it's a separate thing. But in terms of that, there's so much stuff out there. But really, if it's not rooted in what Google are saying, then it's probably something we should be wary of, I guess.
Yeah, there's probably a whole other episode or indeed series of episodes on that. But Google is your guiding principle. But we're not going to get into that. Maybe when we look at our website, I think knock around a little bit. But
exactly, it becomes important because we do need to get traffic. So when we design a homepage, we do need the right words in there that Google can understand, not just our users. If that's one of our aims. So I kind of thrown it in the same thing. Visual design, again, there's just so many books on that. I don't know, for me, the big breakthrough was, we talked really on WP Builds about this before. I became quite a fan of somebody who you featured on the other thing that you do with your Page Builder Summit, Laura Elizabeth. And she introduced me to something that actually is pretty commonplace in the UX world. This idea of, well, you don't really need to be that much of a designer if you can just run through some approach to building up your pages. So you put your content down there. Once you've got your copy down there, and then it's about sectioning this out using sort of laws of proximity, color, space, and consistency in those kind of spaces to avoid this unconscious jarring that people get. A bad design, but sometimes you can't put your finger on it, but it's often because there's an inconsistency in spacing or color, or things are cramped together that needs to have its own proximity to make it stand out. So I think with a few skills like that, certainly people like me who've really got no design skills, can manage to get something that doesn't look too unprofessional. And then it's just a case of a few embellishments for a bit of eye candy, really, just to make it look a little bit unique. So that's where we're at, isn't it?
Laura Elizabeth is well worth checking out. She does manage to explain the components of building a website up from scratch. She's got a bunch of material out there. She's done webinars and presentations all over the place. So definitely worth Googling her and seeing how she can build something that looks really credible in a very short space of time without the need for complicated, design libraries and things. It's much more straightforward. So yeah, great.
Yeah. And there's lots of tools that we're using now that will just kind of do things. So, things about getting your type right. So it's on a scale, there's maths behind that because people like patterns. So if you get the patterns right, with your content and apply that in the correct way, you don't need to be that much of a designer to make something look good. Well, that's my theory.
I think you're right. Well, I think as we'll see in a minute, you've got a really credible suggestion for our homepage. Yeah.
One thing for us, though, there are lots of sites like Dribble that share lots of new design ideas, what people are doing, which tends to set off trends. You can often see there's a move to certain things and people build on that. And then that goes forward to how people are designing. But one thing that crossed my mind is I ignore those most of the time for most of the work we're doing. And I think we would ignore it for our own homepage because we would expect, as with something like WP Builds, which is still running strong now, it's gone over quite a long period of time. And you wouldn't want something that was too much today's fashion, I don't think.
That's interesting. So yeah, it's not always a good idea to follow the latest trend. I sometimes feel the latest trend is often something experimental as well. And you get the impression that it may not stand the test of time, and you'll end up in a year or two feeling, oh gosh, that was a wave which we rode for a moment, and then the wave collapsed on the shore and it's gone. And now we're left with something which was fun at the time, but doesn't actually look that credible anymore.
Yeah. And some of them, like Bentos grids is something that's quite popular at the moment. But, if you're a UX person, you're probably going to look at that and say, that's really bad UX because there's no hierarchy of stuff. It's just little boxes, So some of them you would avoid. But I think for us, you would want to avoid nailing yourself down to something that's not going, you probably go more classic because it won't date so quickly.
I like it. We're going to call our website a classic. I'm with you. Okay, got it.
Finally, I'll put something down on marketing, but I don't think, again, often when I'm with clients, I started to use things, StoryBrand, particularly as a way of introducing people simply to the idea of how they might want to market themselves on the homepage. Donald Miller's book and courses and everything else that he does. You're familiar with this, aren't you? And it's very popular. Yeah. I think for something like what we're doing, I think there's a big flaw in it in a way. And that is that it's a really good idea to be able to tell your brand as a story. So the basic idea of StoryBrand is that you define a user, your character, who has a problem. So you define what it is, the problem that you're solving for them, who meets a guide, which is you, the website, and what it is that you do, of which you give them a call to action and they will have some success. And you tell the story within your homepage of like that. But some things just, perhaps I'm just not a story, are they?
No, I was going to say, if you're doing a plumbing website, it's it's probably a crisis moment where you suddenly need a plumber and maybe the story's actually just going to get in the way. What I need is the phone number right now. But I guess there's a story in there, isn't there? I suppose. But there is an element of me, it's my curmudgeonly Northern English coming out, that thinks on some occasions for some projects, things like that is just overcomplicating it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sort of explain that, for some people and some industries, going to that level is not necessary. But, you
can tell the wrong place. You could tell the wrong story as well. One of clients who is actually a web designer himself, and he took one of these courses, he read the book, StoryBrand, and applied it to his business, which is psychotherapy. And with that, the very clear story is somebody has these type of problems and they meet their guide, the psychotherapist who helps them with it. So the whole of his homepage was guided like that. And, I could see it in a way, but, the one thing is that it was so ineffective for communicating anything to everybody because people who were looking for what he did already knew that story. And that's why they wanted it.
Yeah.
So it was all a load of blurb, which got away from explaining who they were. And anything about what was unique about what they did. So you can see how it can go wrong with it. And there is a certain sense for me that it's, much of the marketing is very much US male capitalist driven approach to everything. You just know what I mean? And reflect all of the world and who you're trying to connect with. So I can see where that can go wrong. So I think marketing, that side of stuff, but there is some interesting stuff. Unbounce has some, which is basically a business which is selling landing pages, but they do some remarkable content on all sorts of things on that, particularly user psychologies and stuff, which I found fascinating. But don't think it comes in. So we talk about this homepage design, which we've got at the moment, which is rough.
Okay. So first of all, if you're listening to this on audio, this what's about to follow may not work particularly well because we're about to describe and critique what we've got on the website at the moment, plus an initial homepage design that David's thrown together in, I believe Figma was the software of choice.
Yeah.
But if you do want to go and look at the homepage that we're talking about now, it'll obviously be changing, but that's noscript.show. And, but if you want to go over and look at the video that we're going to be putting out, that's exactly the same content that you're hearing in the podcast. You'll hear every word the same, but you'll be able to see it as well because it'll be a video. You can find that if you go to youtube.com/@ the @ symbol and then no script show. I'm not sure you need the @ symbol actually in there, but anyway, there it is. youtube.com/@ no script show. So you can find it from there. So what do you want me to do? Would you like me to, first of all, put the homepage that we've currently got on, or do you want to go straight to your Figma?
Yeah,
PDF
we'll go
design?
straight to this thing because the homepage we got basically is just one column, just dumping some stuff there. So we know that we need this.
Okay, so you can see we're on the 8th episode. You can see David's dropped in an image, but if you click on that image, it's going to take you to the PDF version of that. And there we are. There it is. Right. Yeah. So we're going to critique this and zoom in. This is going to be just a general chat about what we think works. We might disagree on certain points. We might not. We might agree on everything. But do you want to just broadly paint the picture of how you ended up here? Shall I zoom in on one? Shall I zoom in on
say
the top of this one, the top of the one here, maybe?
Yeah. So we've got a light and a dark version of these, each of it, because we'll have a switch that'll take you from one, but the light version is what most people should see by default when this goes live.
Okay. So there it is. There's the light version. I'll just try and zoom in a little bit better. Ooh, there we go. That'll do nicely. Okay. So what's going on?
Yeah, so for the people on the audio, really, on the desktop version of this, we're going out into two columns. On the right-hand side, there's an icon of a podcast mic and with something slapped on it, little sticker saying podcast and tutorials and articles, which is... So my thinking was, right, we need to make this look something better than what we've got at the moment, and it needs to communicate what's here straight away from the no script show. So if we're going to fill it into 2 columns, then we need something that screams podcast. So I think that icon does that. So
yeah, I think that icon is like the universal symbol of podcasting. Wherever you go, if you go to podcasting apps, if you go to, podcasting websites, you just get the mic, and it's this very stylized version. It's like a cop with like a mic stock on top of it. One thing I should just say is I have an Evernote extension in my browser, and we're not promoting Evernote. That little Evernote symbol, which is there, is not part of David's design.
Okay.
A little Evernote icon, which whenever a PDF crops up, just pops up and says, "Do you want to save this?" So ignore the little elephant.
Yeah. So this is usually the problem when you go to desktop, obviously. And if you actually look a little bit to the left here, I've got the sort of mobile version of that. And again, I don't know if this is right. So we've got our logo, and then when it goes to one column, instead of it being the second item in the second column, the podcast mic thing, it's the first one here. So I'm going to have to reverse if you think that's the way to do it. And you'll notice that the design is different. So we'll need to use something like a picture tag where you can do art direction. So you can basically say, when it's at this point, it'll show this image, which is a more of a rectangle than the square that you're seeing on the desktop version.
I don't know. My opinion would be leave it like that. I think having the logo and then beneath the logo, the menu, and then an image kind of breaks it up nicely. So I'm mousing over the bit in question. I like it that way around. So were you thinking that this image here should drop down below?
No. What I've done is I've reversed the logic of how it would naturally happen. So if we went to, it would break up. It would be text and then it would be image. Yeah. I'm not sure on this one. I mean, this is more of a job to do this version. You could just go with the same SVG and have it fall after the hero text, if you like. But I feel when you land on a mobile, you've only got a very small frame there. It might be useful to have a smaller version of the mic. So as soon as you land there, you said,
I think so. Actually, if you think about it, if you were to imagine a typical orientation of a phone, held in the usual way, so not sort of landscape, but the usual portrait, it's going to cut off about there where the mouse is at the moment, somewhere where it says latest podcast episode. That's where the fold, if you like, is going to be. And I think if this image was a square, it would be like to here.
Yes.
And so it's going to push everything down. You might lose this little section. So no, I don't know. You're going to be doing the grunt work on making it. I think you've got the right intuition, having a smaller letterbox image there, so that you've got more.
Yeah, well, that was my thinking. If we can, within the frame of most mobiles, get the key points, which is on that top hero section. Effectively, we need to get the main text message to people. Some visual representation of what's here, so it's quick and easy to spot, and that's the mic. And then also our main call to action, which is going to get people to subscribe to it either on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. And you told me that Google Podcast, which I put in there, is about to go, so that one will get.
Yeah, so there's an iteration which is forced on us by no fault of our own. Yeah, Google are getting rid of the podcasting app, which has become quite a popular thing for Android users because it's the default. But they're replacing it with YouTube Music is going to become their platform. So we'll have to deal with that and you've already got a YouTube logo. So it might be that you just end up with 3 logos in there, or you could pick another popular player like something like Pocket Cast. I guess the enterprise there would be to go around some of the big podcasts out there and see what they're doing. See what the likes of Joe Rogan is doing with his options.
Yes.
But Apple is the big one, and then everything, and YouTube, I think, will be obviously the big one for us as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So actually, we skipped over something. I'll just mention something. So we've on the site as it presently is at the moment, we've got a centralized logo, and the navigation is falling underneath it because of the space, the one column, very small width. So now stretching out, we're going for, on the desktop, the logo left and navigation to the right. Now, I've again gone with the NN group, because their research says that is the most common pattern and the one that people are able to navigate best, because that's what they use.
It's don't make me think, isn't it? This is just absolutely the most standard. Logo left, menu aligned right to the right, with the button typically the furthest option on the right. Yeah, I think that's exactly the way it should be. Frees up a bit of space, gets you a few centimeters of extra space. Kind of interesting. I notice here that on the desktop version, you've got a subscribe link as a button, but and I don't know if this was just by accident, but on the mobile version, the subscribe link has gone. And I was thinking that actually one of the primary endeavors for us at the moment, launching this podcast, is to get people to subscribe. And it's difficult for a podcast to make that button do anything useful, because where do you send them? Do you send them to a page, which is then a bunch of other links? That's what we've got at the moment. It's got links to things like Apple Podcasts and YouTube and so on. But that is the primary thing, I suppose, for us at the moment, trying to make a podcast successful, is to get people to subscribe. And so I would petition you to keep that included in the mobile menu as well.
It's not there because obviously this is thrown together, so it's not it's a little bit clumsy. So I forgot it literally. But actually now you've mentioned this, it's made me go the opposite way and think, does it need to be there on the main menu? Actually, it does. I think it does, because I was going to go through the whole of the page. All I was thinking on the home page here, it perhaps didn't need to be there if we managed to get that little block, that little subscribe block on the top. The subscribe is already there.
Yeah, another option, of course, would be just to take these ever so familiar icons. Actually, I think the Spotify icon is really familiar. I think the YouTube one is. I'm not so sure about the Apple Podcast icon. I just don't know if that's ingrained in people's heads.
No.
But you often see that on websites, don't you? You see maybe, I don't know, here, somewhere very top right, like an extra bar, which sticks, which is just separate with those sort of subscribe icons. You might have a Twitter handle or something like that. We're not going down that route. This is all audio. But that might be an option as well, is to put those icons simply there. I don't know. I'm conflicted about that.
Yeah, you used to want to get all this stuff above the fold on the top there, and people used to stick their, social networks up, which was a bit stupid because you didn't want to lead them away from your site. So people stopped doing that. But I actually feel I don't know, this is personal. My sense is now that I kind of ignore anything that's icons on the top now.
Okay,
I feel
interesting.
I feel it's away from what I'm doing. So I feel the best place is after your main value proposition is stated, the call to action should follow there. And that should be the one that I always feel that anything up above is a secondary thing. It's the place where social icons lazily will put up there. So
can I just delve into this a little bit more? Is the primary thing for us on this homepage, is it to get them to YouTube? Just YouTube, not even the podcast apps, because you're making a load of content which goes in this show, but it's not part of the audio feed. But you're making a load of YouTube content. So is really the whole point to drive everybody to YouTube? And even this website, like the whole website, is just a function of getting people to go to YouTube, where all the content would be. I mean, obviously you won't get the transcripts and stuff like that, but what do you think? Is that the whole point? Promote YouTube?
Wow. I think they've just come up with, that's really, really good. Maybe we do need to rethink that call to action and make that call to action for the homepage that it would make sense on the individual episode pages to have a bar like this underneath,
right?
A visual representation of it. But for the home, I think you're right, actually. We'll need to.
So here's the thing, right? Is that the podcasting space, if you can get people to subscribe, that's fabulous. But it's a bit like getting people onto an email list. There's quite a lot of steps to go through. You've got to have a podcast player. You've got to be inclined to go there, somehow search for it or copy and paste the URL. And it's a silo in that there's no algorithm in a podcast player to promote your content. Whereas if we can get them to YouTube after a period of time will start surfacing us to people who are just browsing YouTube, but also, at the end, when a video is over, you will end up with other pieces of our content pushed. Now, obviously, that's completely proprietary. We have no control. YouTube could cancel us at any minute and all of those kind of things. Yeah. But I think history shows YouTube's going to be around and it can be a very successful marketing channel. So for now, at least anyway, it feels like YouTube is the main driver, and the podcasting apps. That's great, but maybe that's not the main thrust.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Nathan. Okay. This chat was worth it just for that, because you've just nailed it. Actually, I think we're missing the main aim. We do want to get them to. When it comes to the homepage, I think YouTube just needs to be there. I think when it comes to the individual episodes, which we class, because not all of the things that we put on YouTube is a podcast episode. Right. So on those particular pages, then a bar like this, which just suggests you can go and listen to this in other places, I think that's the solution. So we need to change that, definitely.
Okay. But the website has massive utility because it's a platform that we can use should we come up with stuff that's non-YouTube. But also it's going to be getting back to what we were talking about earlier, it's the SEO piece. It's that if somebody hears in a crowded room, somebody says, oh, you should listen to this no script show podcast, they're going to go to Google and type it in. And obviously we want a website to service that, and so that we can appear, but also we can do our own other things on that website, can't we? We can, in the future, if it takes off, we can do other types of content, other things which might never make it onto YouTube, blog posts and so on. So the website for now maybe is this driver to YouTube, but we wouldn't give up on the website and just do YouTube. The website's going to be important, but okay. Well, we've changed direction a bit there. That's interesting.
So that really needs to be a typical call to action button, perhaps with the symbol for YouTube, but saying subscribe on YouTube, which of course we know we can add that little extra to the URL, which can pop up the subscribe to the channel anyway.
Yeah. So this is those people who are listening. David came up with some gold. It's really great. If you append, and I've actually forgotten what it is, but I think it's query. Oh, actually, let me, where can I find that link? I can't, but there's a little bit that you can append to the end of a URL going to YouTube, which pops up a would you like to subscribe modal as soon as they arrive. Do you remember what it is? Are you able to?
Yeah, I just brought it up because it's actually there on our present subscribe page. And so obviously it's the URL to No Script Show, and then it's !sub_confirmation = 1.
Right. And if you append that to the URL, the person that lands gets asked immediately whether they want to subscribe. Now, I'm not sure whether in the round that's the best UX, because you've sort of given them something else to do, haven't you? But maybe at the beginning, that's quite a useful thing to do because it's not hard to dismiss. Do you actually have to dismiss it by clicking a button, or can you just click elsewhere in the UI? I don't know. Anyway, but I thought that was
interesting. Honestly, I don't know.
No. Okay. I think keep it in and let's see if it.
Yeah, we'll see if it's
see if it gets our subscriber count over 59. That's where we're at right now.
Should we talk about because obviously copy came into this, and I've put together, after quite a bit of thought, the best I could come up with, but I'd just be interested in your thoughts. So, and you already suggested something that might need swapping around. So what we've got, for those who can't see it, we've got a little, what they call an eyebrow, which is the sort of subheader. And it says web design podcast for non-programmers. And then below that is the main header, rediscovering HTML and modern, with an asterisk on it, CSS. You suggested that might be better the other way around visually.
Interesting. Yeah. So the order of the text, I think, should stay the same. In other words, that should be at the top still. So, so it should be exactly the same words. But my gut feeling is that's a more useful hook So it should be bigger, because if you're coming to this page, we're not really rediscovering HTML and modern CSS, are we? We're not doing that. I mean, we are, but it's not like we've reinvented the wheel or anything. We're not groundbreaking technologists or anything. But this is what we want. We want people who are non-programmers to come and feel that they're getting useful tips about web design. So having that as the main hook. So in other words, I think what I'm basically saying is, could we take the font size of that and apply it to that, and then, just basically swap them around? So this is big, this is small. Sorry, dear listener on audio, not making any sense.
Yes. So basically, it'll be this kind of subtitle rather than the eyebrow that we've got at the moment. So the small text with it. So I'm not entirely sure on that one. I'm just wondering if we should be riding the wave of a new excitement over particularly the modern CSS,
Okay. Yeah. So you made a good point. Yeah, I think you're right. There'll be a lot of people searching for that as well. Yeah.
It's hard to know. I did do a little bit of SEO keyword research, and of course, what I would normally do with a client is to see if there's any gold dust here. And there isn't in particular. So what I tried to do is to get all of the words. So it's literally
SEO gold.
So the eyebrow, technically on the code side, there's a bit of a debate about how you're supposed to do this. When you get a little eyebrow and then your main copy, normally you say, well, what would you make that little eyebrow? Would you make that paragraph text and size it, and then make the rediscovering HTML and modern CSS the header one? I think what I'm going to do, or have done on other sites when I've done this, is I've made it all a header one and put the eyebrow in a span tag. So
okay.
All of it are the words that, search engines should be looking to.
Yeah. So hopefully if you Google this show, something akin to this at some point, all of that would pop out as the title. Okay, that's interesting. But here you've put an asterisk, which is kind of interesting. You don't often see that. So the implication with the asterisk is that there's more to say. Where are you surfacing that?
Well, that's going beyond the now will be changed call to action button. There's a little, and that's going to be a details tab.
Here.
So there's a little asterisk, say modern CSS question mark. And what that I thought could be, and again, I don't know if my thinking got on this, home pages for SEO are tricky because, you're expecting a lot of your internal links and external links to give the power to that. And effectively it's a hub. But in some ways you do need to communicate with as much text as possible what is here, and the homepage is going to be that. So rather than overwhelming people with information they might not need, using something like a details tab, which works like an icon, just in straight HTML, you can add in something. So I can add a bit of an explainer by what we mean by modern CSS and why that's prompted this whole podcast in a bit of additional text, in which I can put some other headers and some other keywords in it, but also to be useful to anybody who really doesn't know what that means. A lot of people are saying modern CSS, and they know that this is this new wave of, since grid and, so much more that we can do that we don't need JavaScript for. That's what people are referring to. But it needs some explanation. But it seems too much to put that explanation, a wall of text for everybody who just wants to be interested in the podcast.
The implication here is the asterisk is go look for something else, and it's down here. It's just down. Yeah. Obviously, we'll change this around. And so what is this? This is a link, like a summary.
This is a click and it'll drop down.
Details, summary. Yeah. So it's an accordion in effect. You'll click on it, and I wonder if that needs to be underlined or something. I know this is a rough estimate, rough guess, but
I think I'll make it look like it's clear that
like a link. Yeah. And so
then
everything, like all of this, there'll be like will it be full width? Are you just gonna occupy the same width as this and just keep that, this text here? Anyway, the point is there's hidden text from the eyeballs, at least anyway, which will explain a little bit more. Okay, great.
It'll probably just fall on that side. That's what it would do naturally in the way that the grid would be set up. I could make it full width, but when you come to mobile, it's going to go to that size anyway. So probably just the one side. So that's just a way of cramming in a bit of cheating in a way. It's a bit of a way of saying to search engines what this thing is that we're doing when we're talking about modern CSS. But hopefully it's not too much of a cheat, because it is designed to be useful for somebody who goes, what do you mean modern CSS?
Yeah. Can I just ask it? So I'm going to move us on quickly to the next bit, which is the latest podcast episode. Is there a reason in this design why this got floated to the right as opposed to the left? Because we've got this image which says latest podcast episode. I don't know whether I probably would have ended up with that over on the left.
You feel it should be reversed? Yeah. I think only. I mean, I'm literally chucking little units around. So, I mean, my only feeling was there was on the light version, a big dark thing on our call to action, which now reduced. So I think I will naturally end up slipping it to the left. I would feel like you. I would go left first. So I'm the same as you in that. But it only because it looked a little bit like it was all lopsided to the right.
Yeah. I can well imagine. Yeah.
Sorry, to the left.
So we've got, so far, it feels like we've got three things going on. We've got go to our YouTube channel. We've got learn a little bit about modern CSS, or we're for non-programmers and we're going to be talking about HTML and CSS. And then now the third thing feels like now play the latest episode. Here's our latest piece of content.
Yeah.
I guess that's a really typical thing to do, isn't it? If you're a podcaster or a YouTuber, having the most recent episode on the homepage, that makes sense, I think.
Yeah. And also if we can bring in some of the description for that episode, again, it's a bit more text that will, I think it's good to have your homepages changing regularly. I think for search engines like to see that something is happening, that you have not abandoned this page.
Right.
So there's a part of SEO thinking in doing that, particularly bringing forward the copy, not just the image link to the episode.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. I mean, if I was going to a podcast website, I would have an expectation that I'd be able to easily find the most recent piece of content. Right. That would be what I'd want to do. Yeah, okay. And that's going to be a YouTube video as opposed to an audio player. Because really the video is going to show everything as well. Okay. And then you've got this little extra section, which is that going to be related to the most recent episode, the bit that you do that's related to it? Or is that just some, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to, I suspect at some point we'll start doing the odd article as well, which will be another strand of this, just for, to cover things that maybe wouldn't go in a podcast or don't need a video or something. So there might be some other extras, but I imagine that will be, because what we're doing at the moment, it may not be forever, but almost for every podcast we do, I do a little short 10-minute video, which is related to some code aspect of what we've been doing, as I work out that stuff most of the time. So the sort of 2 bits of content which are going out at the moment, podcast every 2 weeks, and this every 2 weeks as well, this little 10-minute thing that I do. So we've got weekly content. So that's where I put that. I suspect we'll change this over time, but that's just what it is at the moment.
Yeah. But I mean, would the endeavor be to give that piece of content its own page? Because obviously
it has it already.
Yeah. That's what I mean. But there's going to be like some SEO benefit of cross linking. Between the episode, let's say episode 8, and the ancillary extra bit of content that you do for episode 8, you're kind of doubling the SEO footprint because you've got 2 bits of content, but they're cross-referencing one another. Boy, over time, we're going to get so many pages. It's going to quickly add up.
Yeah. I mean, I've put extras there, but actually it should be the tab that I've used for it for the videos I'm doing is called Learn, which I felt a bit awkward about using the learn. It's like, learn from me. No, you're not, because I'm learning and explaining what I'm learning. So it's learn with me is what that section is supposed to be.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it should say.
Learn with me. I like it. Yeah. And then you've obviously got the mandatory who we are, pictures of me and you and what have you, plus the footer.
Yeah. And also, I mean, when it comes to this, something that Google seem to think is quite important these days is that EEAT, which is, please don't make me say it in full because I just stumble over it.
It's okay. You can blank on that.
It's experience. Well, I know what it is. It's experience, expertise, authority, I'm going to say, instead of the word that they use, because it just doesn't trip well, and trust. Okay, that's what makes it up. And they want to see clear. So anything we can do now in our descriptions. So when we did the WP builds, we put comedy descriptions of ourselves. Really.
Right.
And I think we probably, if we've got any credentials or any experience, if you like. So I think our bios need writing just to signify that maybe we've had a few years in the game. So we might know one or two things.
Okay. So rather than be self-deprecating, we're going to actually make outlandish claims of our capabilities.
Well, I think just honest ones, that we have been, I mean, in some ways, I put it in yours anyway, in the sense that you've got other podcasts that you've been running for other times. With mine, I just, I'm alive and live somewhere, That's about like a muster. But
that's going to change over time, though, as well, isn't it? But those images. One quick thing that's jumping out on this design is these little. How would I describe that? Like lightning bolts. You've got lightning bolts really everywhere. Red lightning bolts, always the same, orientated the same way, same color. What's the why did you go down that route? Because in my head, lightning bolts signify heat or kind of like something, really wow, or something like that. What was your thinking?
Yeah, well, there wasn't much.
Don't make me think.
Well, I'll tell you what, I nicked it basically. I saw somewhere else one of the stock images that they had a mic similar to this kind of thing, and they put these little lightning bolts, electricity, I guess, out of the podcast. I think on their thing it said something about, going live or something on it. So I just kind of, looking for embellishments, because obviously we're keeping the page simple. I just basically took a symbol that was the lightning and replicated that. But now you said it, you just think, actually, it probably isn't saying the right thing. So we maybe need some embellishments that are different. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. No, it was just, there was no like sense of like, that's weird or anything. I just thought, oh, lightning. But interesting.
But surely our podcasts are electric, aren't they?
Oh, exactly. Let's keep it then. I don't know. Whenever I think of audio, and of course we're not just audio, are we? We've now decided that it's really going to be about YouTube as much as anything else. That's video, but the audio the iconography around audio is always like this concentric circles. Think of the RSS symbol. You've got like these three quarters of a circle, all concentrically aligned, getting bigger and bigger. That's what I think of for audio, but now that it's going to be a YouTube channel, I don't know. I think we'll have to revisit that, but maybe lightning is not it.
You've just managed, you made me worried about, maybe you think this is really dumb, but now actually, as you've talked more, maybe it's not so dumb, but we could replace it with something else. Because it doesn't need to symbolize audio, because as you say, we're not just audio. So we can make that it's just an embellishment, so the page doesn't seem so bare.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does a good job, doesn't it? Where you've got like an empty space on the left, you've inserted it there, and it breaks it up really well, actually, I think. And again, here, nice use of it there, but obviously, not needed on the mobile version. Okay.
We've gone a long time, and I just wonder if we should just step back one thing and just mention the description. Do you think we're on the right path with that as a this is the description on the hero bit. So after we've got a web design podcast for non-progress, rediscovering HTML and modern CSS. What I've put here, and I'm not sure about this at all, Nathan, is I put CMS users Nathan and David revisit the web's original page builder and ask what we can build today with minimal skills and dependencies. Thing that you've been reading out at the beginning of the episodes at the moment. And then trying to say who it's for freelancers who like to keep things simple and stay on top of web standards, which is the thing that we're getting back to a little bit now. Do you think it's working?
The one thing that jumps out to me is if you're like, first of all, what's a CMS? I know what a CMS is. You know what a CMS is, but I wonder if anybody else knows what a CMS is. I mean, you probably do if you're listening to this, to be honest, but maybe a casual user who's starting out on their journey of creating websites won't know what that is. So that might throw them off. So maybe that maybe that would say WordPress even.
Well, I could
something like that.
I mean, I could put a little abbreviation in HTML on it. So it has a little, however you style it. So when you hover over it, it tells you it's content management system. But that, of course, itself is a little bit, in all honesty, I think I was 5 years of using WordPress before I knew what content management system meant.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But but you've obviously felt it's important to get our names in there right at the beginning. So you've put our names, who we are. I think there's probably some utility in that. And minimal skills and dependencies. Yes. Again, would people know what a dependency was? I don't know. But the second sentence, maybe the second sentence would work really well as the first sentence. So rediscovering HTML and modern CSS. It's for freelancers who like to keep things simple and stay on top of web standards. CMS users Nathan and David revisit the web's blah, blah, blah.
You're right again.
I've never been right more than twice in an hour. This is getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
Maybe, but maybe just flip that around and see how it scans.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right there. We might do. Yeah, the CMS users was the problem. I just thought you wanted to tell a bit of it's again, this storytelling idea, this idea that there's some people here that you can join their journey with. So, I didn't know how to say that in ways that represented that properly, but CMS was the CMS users, page builder users. I mean, it can't imply, because that's wrong, that we've left CMS, so you can't write it in that way, but it needs to show that you come from a background looking at those kind of eyes.
Would negative language work well there? So something like join. So you just mentioned joining us. Join David and Nathan as they get away from using software. No, get away.
No. That's what I was trying to avoid because it's not fair. Yeah. I mean, you're using WordPress.
No, and I'm not moving away from WordPress either.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Neither of us are really moving away from sort of WordPress. Well, I am to a greater degree in the sense the work that I have doesn't need it so much. So that's the exploration. But you don't want it to imply that. But yeah, maybe it's one to think about. That was the best I could come up with because I thought I'm stumbling over the wrong things, but it felt like it needed to tell a story. You needed to join us as we did because that's the uniqueness of the take of what we're doing. Now, if you want to learn CSS and HTML, there are far better people than us, but you might be someone who's in our shoes going through that journey where you've kind of got a bit out of touch with that stuff because you've been so focused on the CMS or whatever that you skip that. So I wanted to get that in, but maybe
let's iterate on that over time, but I'll just reiterate what's going on here. So this is a PDF image that we're looking at. If I just click backwards and go to the noscript.show/8 page, so that's episode 8, you'll be able to find that by clicking on the image where it says initial homepage design. So you'll be able to find it there. But are we done? Have we done enough?
Yes, we've been on for
gazing
ages.
at our own stuff for a little while. Sorry for the audio, folk. I apologize, but it is what it is. Go and have a look on the noscript.show website, and you'll be able to see everything. It's turned out to be quite a long episode, so apologies for that as well. Right, I will take that off the screen. Are we just knocking it on the head there and saying goodbye? See you next time.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about what we could do next time, but maybe I think one thing we'll want to talk about other pages and features, but maybe, I don't know, just for something different, we might want to, one of my interests is, don't know if it's yours, is browser support. What are we supposed to support these days with all this modern CSS out there? We have a new tool, Baseline, which is supposed to tell us which things we can use, and we have Can I Use site, which tells us. But in all honesty, I think we need to investigate this because I band it about. I hear other people talk about these things as their clues to what they should support. And quite honestly, I really don't understand it enough. So maybe we should talk about that next time.
In which case, I'm going to dig out my trench coat and magnifying glass so that we can give it a thorough investigation next time. That'll be episode 9. But for today, episode 8 is a wrap. Thank you, David, for joining me today. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Always an absolute pleasure chatting to David Waumsley. In this case, all about the No Script Show homepage. What did you make of it? If you've got any comments, probably the best thing for now is to head over to wpbuilds.com, search for episode number 369, and leave us a comment there. We would really appreciate that. Alternatively, you can find our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@NoScriptShow. But we would be really interested in knowing what you thought. It's really fun having a discussion about something like that, being really brutally honest about the bits and pieces that we've got out there and what we think needs improving. But we would really welcome your thoughts. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by GoDaddy Pro. GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. Find out more by going to go.me/WP Builds. That's go.me/WP Builds. We're also supported by Weglot. Weglot, the easiest way to translate your WordPress website. The Weglot translation plugin gives you a reliable and easy way to make your WordPress website multilingual in minutes. No coding required and no developer time needed. Find out more at weglot.com. That's weglot.com. And sincere, heartfelt thanks go to GoDaddy Pro and Weglot for their support of the WP Builds podcast. Okay, that's all I've got for you this week. Just to say, we'll obviously be back next week for a podcast, but also join us live, 2 p.m. UK time at the WP Builds live page, wpbuilds.com/live for our live This Week in WordPress show. We really, truly do enjoy your comments. I hope that you've enjoyed that. I am going to play you some utterly dreadful, cheesy music created by AI. And say, stay safe. Have a good week. Bye-bye for now.